Hi there, it's Liane from South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture, and today's workshop we're going to be doing a decoupage box. So for the decoupage box project, what you'll need is the box, paper mache, and a selection of the decoupage papers and some PVA. And what I've done is I've taken 50% water, 50% PVA and just give it a shake, and that just means that it spreads a little bit more easily to get the paper to stick to the boxes. So the first step is to get all the decoupage paper cut out. This paper, you can see it looks a lot like tissue paper. If you look at the weight of it, it's similar to the thickness, but it's actually a little bit stronger than tissue paper. It has got like a plasticky coating almost, or like a waxed coating on the surface. And it just means that when it gets wet with the PVA in the water, it doesn't break as easily as tissue paper does. You can try it with tissue paper, but it does tend to get a bit soggy. So the sheets are, what we're going to do with the decoupage paper is we're going to cut lots of squares. About between 1 centimetre and 2 centimetres is a good size to work with. So I'll show you a way of doing this that's quite an efficient way of cutting them to get lots done at once. So the sheet comes folded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down these folds, and I'm going to make a little pile here, like I've already done, of separate sheets, and it means I can then just cut that into the squares. So I'm going to cut along the main big folds, cut it in half. Two halves, quarter, so it's easier to cut the paper when it's bigger pieces. It's easier to cut the folds that way. So I'm going to lay those together now. I've got the quarters piled. Cutting along the fold, and then again. Try and keep the edges lined up so that it comes out more straight when we get the squares. Okay, so that's the pile. And what I'm going to do is cut those into 3 strips. They're moving around a bit, so they're not going to be perfect squares, but that's absolutely fine because it does tend to blend together once we start sticking them on the box. So I've got this strip, so from here, just make small pieces. Okay, so I've got the PVA in water, and I'm going to start sticking that down. I'm going to start with the outside of the lid. So what I like to do first is lay down a little bit of PVA and water mixture. And I find it's easier if you don't cover the whole lid with PVA, because by the time you get around to sticking all of these pieces down, the PVA tends to dry out. So just work on a little section at a time and just lay it down. So I'll do one in the middle first, I've laid it down, and then I'm just going to brush over the top quite gently to make sure that it looks really smooth and flat on the cardboard box. Add in a little bit more PVA. And I'm going to make this one, the outside of the box, quite decorative with different colours of paper, and I'm going to make the inside plain. So stick that down, brush over, and then add a little bit more on. Okay, I'm getting to the point where I'm coming to the edge bits now. So what we would like to aim for is to have like the edges smoothed over and without too many creases. You can see I've got a little crease there. I'm just going to smooth that out, get it nice and flat, and I'm going to work my way around. So this bit, I'm actually going to deliberately overlap the paper over the edge of the lid so that it will tuck over. Okay, that corner's a bit tricky, so I've got a little crease in there, but that'll be fine. Lay that down, and again, just overlapping slightly. So everything's just looking quite smoothed and flat against the box. I'm trying to avoid bumps or ridges. So I'm sticking to one edge and just working away rather than starting on a separate bit, because that way it's easier to hold the box as you go along, because it can start sticking as you're holding it. Just tucking these under. They're not that even. You could be really careful and get them really evenly up to the crease, but I'm going to put a lining in here so I'll overlap the edges with the lining. Okay, so I've filled in a lot of the lining of the box. So I went over the edges and tried to keep it quite neat with the outside colour, and then took the inside colour and lined up the edge first. So to try and keep it in a straight line, I just lined up the edge. Just adjust it till you're happy with how it sits. And a narrower edge is easy to fix around the curve. You get less creases that way. So you could even drop smaller strips. So then brush over that. And just do the last bit to fill in the middle. Okay, and that's the lid done. You can see that this lid's still wet, but if you've got time you could always leave the outside to dry, and then it's less sticky on your fingers to do the inside lining, because I was finding I needed to wash my hands between doing a lot of this because it starts to catch. But I think the effect is really nice. You could always play around with cutting out different shapes, triangles, hearts and things, circles, and just create more of a pattern. But the paper on its own has got a great pattern to it. Thank you for participating in the workshop, and I hope you enjoy it.